I'm here on the first tee at TPC KL, and I've got the man of the hour this week, the Yardage book man, who gives us all of the information we need for the week, Mike Etherington. You're doing a great job so far.
Well, I hope so. That's what they pay me for. So yeah, I'm pretty popular Monday, Tuesday. I've been out here for weeks before the event gathering the information that all the players and caddies need to play the course properly, which involves tee compasses, wind directions, elevation changes, slopes, everything they need to make an educated decision and hit the shot.
Brilliant. Well, I know how much effort goes into it. Can you give us a little insight as to how you go about mapping a golf course like this?
Yeah, so a number of years ago it was all hand sketched and it was fairly basic, and I was a professional golfer for 17 years, so I've kind of built up a golf IQ in terms of doing this. And I was doing my own books because the books out there weren't so good and all the other pros wanted my books, and I started making that for them, and before you know it I was making more money than my mediocre golf career. So a few years ago it all went digital and I couldn't keep playing and doing this at the same time, so I chose this path, and I think it was a good decision. But it involves satellite traces from the best satellite imagery you can get to create the shapes of the course, breaking that down so that you have the dead areas of the course, like maybe the first 150 metres off the tee is dead, so you don't need that in the book. And then using your golf IQ to eliminate things that the players won't need and include all the really important information, which, as I said, a windy day like today, you need to know your compass, so you need to know where the help's coming from. The elevation changes. Here we're hitting slightly uphill, so although the distance to carry that trap's 226, with the elevation it's more like 230, which actually can make a difference to a choice of club off the tee. So essentially I put all the information in there, and then the players and caddies have to make that personalised to them so that they can try and get an advantage over the rest of the field.
Absolutely. Well, there's so much information in it. Do you want to go out on course? We'll have a look and see what kind of stuff you write down for them.
Yeah, no problem.
Mike, we're walking up to the yellow dot that's in the middle of the first fairway. What does this mean?
Well, this is the central dot for the paint zone that I create for the players. So there'll be one up there and one back there, and you have to have a zone for all the longer and shorter hitters. But this point is particularly important. By being the central one, the grid and the compass come off this. So if you know that, wherever you are, you can know what the compass direction is and the distance you have in. And you also notice on the side of the fairways there's little yellow strips that correlate to the colour of the dot. They create a curve for the players, so if they're in the rough or they're not actually on the dot, they can know exactly how far they have into the hole.
There's so much work that goes into these books. How long does it take you to map out a golf course? It must take forever.
Well, for a first up course and a complex course, it might be as much as 22 hours on course, and then another 30 to 40 on the computer on Illustrator getting it into form. But for returning courses, so we've played this one for 4 years, it's probably half the work, but I still spend at least 12 hours on course double checking all the numbers, the fairway cuts. And this year on this course there was a lot of bunker changes and the edges of the greens have changed. So for the players maybe it doesn't make a big difference to them, but for me it's a pretty fiddly job because I have to be right. That's why I have a job.
Well, that's it. The players need pinpoint accuracy, don't they? And you do such a brilliant job mapping everything out. Let's go and take a look at the greens maybe. Head
Sure.
on up.
Yep.
Mike, there's even more paint up here by the green. What does the yellow dot mean?
Oh, well, that's the front of the green, and LPGA like it in yellow, Australian Tour I do in white. But that, and there's a dot at the back that line up directly with the yellow dot. So the grid that we have in the book comes off that, and the grid is a 5x5 setup for the hole. So the players are able to exactly identify where the slopes are, where the pin positions are going to be, all off of that dot and the grid that we have there in the book.
So you also obviously put a lot of effort into the greens because they say drive for show, putt for dough, right? So you need to be very careful about what kind of information you put on here. What do you choose on the greens to write down?
Yeah, well, I guess my point of difference is I spend probably more time on the greens than any other yardage book provider, any other surveyor. So I see all the slopes, all the pin positions, what's going to be important. And then I have a palette of slopes I've created in Illustrator that reflect what I see on the green. And then after I've created all the slopes and undulations, I then take my finished work and double check it and make sure it resonates with what I see, what I've created. And if I'm happy with that, that's what I go with. And I'll have false edges, everything that a player needs to give them warning, danger, everything, go-to pins, green light pins, where a flat area is, where a highly undulating area is, and even the officials and so forth will go with my book and use that because the information that is in there will allow them to set the pins in legal spots.
So the last thing you want is a player walking up to something saying, I didn't know that was there, right?
Oh, exactly. And also not having important information in there. My sleepless nights are avoidable mistakes, and so I don't want any player or caddy coming to me and going, you missed a slope, or that wasn't it. But from their perspective, their job is to come out here and be really specific about what they want to do and add information in. My book's for the field, they've got to make it for themselves.
Well, thank you so much for explaining it. So much work goes in behind the scenes here at every LPGA event, and I know how much the girls appreciate it. So keep up the good work, Mike.
Yeah, not a problem.
And there it is, and there's a sneak peek at one of Michael's books, and they're fantastic. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a photo there down the bottom of the hole, which is really good. And then the level of detail in these books is amazing, isn't it, Warren?
Yeah, it's incredible. I've got about 3 shoe boxes full of Michael Etherington's Yardage books at home that I've collected at various tournaments over the years.